Hello, everybody, and welcome to what I think is going to be another one of my favorite sessions at Wakelet Community Week. I had the pleasure of speaking with our next speaker, Wendy, a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, and I absolutely love the presentation that she's prepared for us today. And I think that it nails a few different things that I was just speaking about backstage with her, which is that during Community Week, you learn a lot about new technology. We had an amazing keynote with Ken around AI. You learn how to take these new technologies and these best practices and apply them to your classroom and all that kind of thing. But one of the things, those of you who know me and who have been to Community Week before, know that I'm really, really all for the social emotional learning, the deeper side of being a human, the deeper side of being an educator, and how to kind of cope with things when things are going wrong, how to understand your place in life, strategies on how to just kind of like get through life. And what I really loved when I was speaking with Wendy, and which I think all of you will enjoy in this session as well, is being able to put a name to things finally, right? And being able to hear somebody echo the things that you think about, the decisions that you make, but finally have a name for it and hear that. It's really, really validating. It makes you feel good. So without further ado, I would love to welcome our next keynote, Wendy Turner, to the stage. Welcome, Wendy. How's it going?
Hi, Ms. Great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you all.
I'm excited as well. Where are you joining us from today?
So I'm in the USA, everyone. I'm in Wilmington, Delaware. That's on the East Coast of the United States. I'm about halfway between New York and Washington, D.C.
Oh, amazing. And I can see the clock, but it's reversed. Is it 10:30 a.m. there? Or
10:30 in the morning. I just had my coffee. So whether you're at lunchtime or in the afternoon, I hope you're having a great day.
Nice. Well, we have an amazing crew joining us from all over the world, and I know, Wendy, this might come as a surprise for you, but we have people joining us from Myanmar, from Romania, from Tunisia, from Croatia. A huge welcome to everybody. We've got Anas from Morocco joining us, Liliana from Croatia. How's it going, Liliana? We've got Marietta from Spain, Marit from Finland. Kong from Malaysia, welcome. Irene from Jordan. Everybody in the chat, let us know where you're from, And another thing that I'd like to say before Wendy jumps into her session is, like my keynote with Ken, these sessions are so much better when we get contributions from you. So if there's a point that you agree with, if there's a point that you disagree with, if there's something that you'd like to share from your own personal experiences, sharing is caring. Get it out there. Let the rest of the community hear from it and learn from it. I, as usual, will be pinning some really cool comments that you make to the live chat as well. So, Wendy, I'm really excited. Are we ready to rock?
Ready to rock, ready to go.
Perfect. I'll pull up your presentation to the stage now, and we are ready when you are.
All right, everyone. Hello, everybody. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for joining us. My session is called Embracing Adult SEL, and what I want to do is I want to help you create your own road to your personal SEL success. And I want this to be part of your personal life and your personal practice. You'll end up bringing that into your workspace, your classrooms, and your education spaces, but it really starts with us as people at home. My mission is to foster curiosity, confidence, and competence in SEL. And like Ms. said, if you see something you like, hear something you like, please light up our chat with questions and comments. And I just want to let you know, I want you to relax during the presentation. We're going to give you a resource bank at the end, using Wakelet, of course, with links and screenshots of all the things I'm talking about today. So don't worry about scrambling to write things down. You're going to get a great bank of resources when we're done. So I'll just introduce myself. There's me and my family. I'm married to Dan Turner, and those are our kids. Our children are 18 and 20, and they are awesome. They're supportive of me. I became a teacher when I was 40 years old. It was a second career, and now I've been a teacher for 16 years. There's our fur baby, Bella. I know we can all connect around pets. So she's 8 years old. She sheds everywhere, but we love her, and she makes it into my classroom slides for my kids. I teach second grade. I've always taught second or third grade, and I love that age group. There's my other baby. That's the book I wrote called Embracing Adult SEL. I am a practical expert in social emotional learning. I'm not a researcher. I'm a practitioner like many of you. And I saw a gap in the marketplace. I didn't find a resource that helped adults develop their practice. So after doing a lot of this work intensely over the last 5 years, I wrote a book, and I just want to help people ignite and then foster their own practice. My core values are joy, growth, and impact. And I'll talk a little bit later about identifying your core values to help you live part of your best SEL life. All right. So Misbah just said, where in this beautiful world are you? If you'd like to light up the chat with your location and a greeting, please go ahead and do so. I put 2 little stars there for Misbah and myself. Again, I'm on the East Coast of the US. Misbah's over in England, and we're so thrilled to have you joining from all over this beautiful world. And again, Misbah, if you want to shout out any locations, feel free to do so.
Yeah, as always. I mean, aside from the ones I've just put a comment in the chat now. We've got somebody from Albany, we've got somebody from Croatia, Liliana, Irina, Karima from Tunisia, Anas from Morocco. We've got some familiar faces, and we have some new faces joining us as well. Hey,
Wonderful.
Julia from Poland, welcome. Big shout out to our community in Poland and Croatia as well. I know that you guys have been doing such an incredible job of promoting amazing Wakelet content and amazing ideas. Adina from Serbia, welcome. Ansa from Egypt.
Oh, wonderful. This is incredible. I love the Wakelet community, how global it is and how excited and engaged it is. I'm just getting chills almost reading all of these.
It's remarkable, honestly. Like it's the same every time somebody joins some of our sessions. It's always like an emotional hit, because quite often we're speaking to the same people from the same places, but Wakelet Community Week is completely different. We've got Naouf joining us from Saudi Arabia, Paula from New York. Yeah, super international. Keep going, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. All right, I'm going to keep going. Thanks for that. I want to start with a connection today as well. We're going to continue with the chat. I want to just have everybody share something that's good, okay? We start off my classroom sessions as well as adult professional development sessions with some type of connection question. And today, my question for you is, what's good? It could be something personal, it could be something professional, or it could be something in the global context. And I'll just share a couple for me. A personal kind of win for me is that I lost some weight at the beginning of the year, and I'm keeping it off. I'm really proud of myself. Professional growth at the end of this school year in June, my 3rd grade students showed phenomenal growth in their math scores. And I was really, really proud of that because I had changed up some of the ways I delivered content this year. So that was like validation of that. So whatever's good for you, go ahead and throw it in the chat, and we can all just kind of bond and get excited about what's going well. Awesome. Dissertation. So I'm about to start my doctorate, Paula, and I'll be right there with you. Thank you for inspiring me. Love it. And hey, Misbah, could you share something good?
Yeah, as I said to you a while back, I became a father 12 weeks ago now. So I've been really, really deep diving into that and enjoying it and taking every minute and overcoming the challenges and really learning to just focus on the amazing possibilities and the amazing opportunity, this amazing little energy in my life. So that's probably been the highlight not only of my year, but of my life, I must say, having that first baby. So yeah, we spoke a little bit about this when I spoke to you. There's a bit midway through your presentation that I really connected with.
Exactly.
So yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for sharing, everyone. Wonderful to see all the good things going on in our lives. All right, let's continue on. So I just want to do a quick review of social emotional learning, what it is. CASEL is the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning. They're a nonprofit organization in the US, and they define SEL as the process through which children and adults understand and manage their emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. And a key word in this definition is the word process. And that to me implies that it's always going on. It's not over, it's not done. I, as an expert, am still learning and enhancing my SEL skills. So let's, focus on that. It's a process, and we're going to make mistakes in the process. We're going to keep going, though. And it's also for adults. And keywords, what we're going to talk about: emotions, empathy, relationships. That's all part of it. On the right is the CASEL wheel, and they talk about 5 competencies that are part of SEL. And I'll go through each one today. They talk about self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. And I talk about them in a particular order for a reason, which I'll get into as we go through the presentation. All right, so I just want to share some research with you. So you don't just take my word for it, why adult SEL is important, but what researchers have found out over the past decade. So adults who have the ability to recognize, understand, label, express, and regulate emotions are more likely to demonstrate patience and empathy, encourage healthy communication, and create safe learning environments. And all of that is the name of the game in our work, right? As educators, we do need to have patience and empathy for our students and our coworkers. We do need to communicate in a healthy way, and we need to create safe environments. Teachers skilled at regulating their emotions report less burnout and more positive affect while teaching. They stay in the profession longer and derive more enjoyment from their jobs. This one really hits me because I've had various times over the past 15 years, especially teaching through COVID, where I have been burned out. And I work hard now to really manage my emotions and stay positive or find the good even on the most difficult of days. And that is helping me enjoy my job. And it is helping me stay in this profession that I love so very much, even on the hardest days. And then also, if we're talking about leadership, school leaders with strong SEL competencies build and maintain positive and trusting relationships among members of the school community. We all know what it's like to work for fabulous leaders and how they make us feel in our spaces. So this adult SEL piece is going to benefit everyone in the system, and then it's going to just trickle down to our students. That's why we want to invest in it. And what's not here that I'll say is that it helps so much in our personal lives. Since I've dug into this work really meaningfully in about the last 5 years, I'm a better wife. I'm a better mom. I'm a better sister. I'm a better coworker. All these things, you're going to see gains in all parts of your life. All right. So I use a model using zones to help us understand SEL. And I think with any topic, you can say that you move through zones as you increase your understanding of it. So a fear zone might be outside of this model. It might be a stagnant, quiet place where SEL is not valued at all. Our curiosity zone might be the entry point for learning about SEL. So if you're like, okay, I know about SEL, I want to start learning about it, I would say that you're in this curiosity zone. You're kind of bridging out just a little bit into that first small circle. In the confidence zone, you are actively practicing and growing your SEL skills. You know what SEL is, and you're trying things. And so your circle on the topic is getting and growing a little bit bigger and wider. And then the competence zone is where you're really at a mastery level. You're skilled at using and modeling SEL both personally and professionally. I am in the competence zone, but I'm still learning and growing. So a question I've got for you is, with respect to SEL, where are you? And I have another version of this model that can help us understand that. So the question is, the topic, where am I with SEL? And I've got some questions here to help us understand if we're in the curiosity zone, the confidence zone, or the competence zone. So in the curiosity zone, you might be saying things like, what is SEL? How do I teach it? How do I do it myself? You really want to know more, but you're interested. In the confidence zone, you're like, yes, I know what SEL is. I can teach it. I can nurture it with others. I can grow my skills. You're feeling good about yourself with relations as related to SEL. And in the competence zone, you're really getting to that mastery point. You can explain it to someone else. You can integrate it with academics and culture, whether it's a school or a district, some type of agency, and you can model those SEL skills for students and adults. And I would say also in the competence zone, you're using it at home in a really powerful way. So what we'd like to ask you, I'm going to put up a QR code here. If you could scan that QR code with a phone or a tablet and take a little poll about what zone of SEL you're in, we'll find out where we are today. And it's important to note that we don't want to be judgmental about where we are. We just want to notice where we are and just own it. And then if we're in the curiosity zone and we want to move forward into the confidence zone, we want to say to ourselves, well, what do I need to be doing? And you know what? Some days you might move back and forth in the zones, and that is okay. All right. So we've got some confidence zones. Great. Competence. So we have a lot of understanding and living in the different zones. This is wonderful to see. All right. Curiosity helps teachers grow emotionally. Absolutely. Connect better. Lead with empathy. Yeah, empathy is really the secret sauce, Marietta. I just saw your comment in life, whether it's personal or professional. So I think that makes a lot of sense. First and second, competence. So we have a lot of SEL experts on here. This is awesome. Okay. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. I'm going to just pop over to my poll and see what responses we've got. All right, and here's what I love. I'm actually going to pop out of this for a second, and I'm going to put in our poll. Just give me a sec here, guys. So here's where we are. Here's what I love. We're everywhere. Take a look at that. We are in the curiosity, confidence, and competence zone, and that's exactly where we should be. And there's no judgment with that. We are just knowing where we are so we can move forward. I love it. Thanks so much for taking part in the poll, everybody. All right. I want to also make another analogy here. The zones are like an SEL highway. That fear zone would be back roads. You're moving slowly. The curiosity zone might be your on-ramp to the highway. The confidence zone is the middle lane, and the competence zone is your fast lane. And of course, just like with a highway, we can move in and out of the lanes across the zones. So just another way for us to help us understand SEL a little bit better. All right, let's keep going now. So what I want to talk to you about is building your personal SEL toolbox. And there are 3 types of tools that we can have. We can have proactive tools we develop before we need them. In the moment tools we use right in the middle of situations, whether it's at home or at school. And reflective tools that we use to look back and learn. Once you set up and you have that toolbox, you will be prepared for anything. And the proactive strategies to develop SEL skills, that's our investment, okay? They're on the shelf when we need them. We work on them beforehand. We practice them daily. We have continual growth with them. I'm going to share several proactive tools that are now just part of my life. I don't even have to think about them. And they are coming to mind so I can handle situations. And that's how I know I'm in that competence zone. Our in-the-moment tools are there when we need them. We also want to have daily practice and continual growth with them. I might be in a certain situation, even with one of my kids or a family member, and I'm going to say, I'm going to use this tool to get through this situation, and it just happens automatically. So that's where I want you to be, knowing what you need in different situations. And then those reflective strategies, we need to go back and think through situations. We want to look back at what happened, even if we had kind of like a failure situation, and identify that root cause of the failure or of the success, because whatever is causing our success, we want to keep growing on it. We want to identify time for this, and it's important to have that time. For me, it's at the end of the day, kind of when I'm coming back home. I take that time to just kind of like play through the day in my head. And it's really helpful to me in identifying successes and failures. And when I have failures, my most powerful tool to fix things is an apology. So I may go back right the next day and apologize to a student or to someone that I didn't do a great job with. And that is okay, because we're human and we have these types of moments where we want to reflect and do better. All right. So the whole approach is about being prepared. Proactive strategies we've developed beforehand. That's before we need them. In the moment strategies we use in situations when they are happening. That's the during piece. And reflective strategies we use to reflect on situations after they happen. So it's literally before, during, and after. So a conventional approach, but really focused on SEL. All right. And then what we want to do is we want to climb the SEL mountain. This is a graphic I created that takes those 5 competencies that are part of the castle circle, that wheel we saw in the beginning. And the way I want to approach this is I say that we're going to climb the mountain, and our base layer is our work on our self-awareness. If you look at the model down at the bottom, that self-awareness strip, that's the biggest one, because that's where we need to invest the most work. After that, we work on our self-management. And I call that working on self. That's the first part of the mountain. Then what we want to do is work on connecting with others and our relationships with others. That's where social awareness comes in, and relationship skills. And at the top of the mountain, all of our skills are synthesized, and responsible decision-making is just going to happen. I'm telling you that when you are self-aware, you can manage yourself, you're socially aware, and you have great relationship skills, you're just going to make better decisions. And that's where our skills synthesize. I did a book study last year with some teachers in my building. And one of the teachers said, she looked at this model and she said, I want to go to the top of the mountain. I want to see the sun. So we want to get to that synthesis of skills. Of course, all of the competencies kind of like are intertwined and have tentacles that hit on each other. But this is an organized approach, which is something I think we need, because people say work on your adult SEL, but they don't show us how or tell us how. And this is just a model to kind of lay out how we're going to do this. All right. So I hope that makes sense and is useful. What we want to do now, there's Bella, there's my fur baby. I would like to have you share in the chat. The topic I want you to share on are the zones of SEL, the organized approach to adult SEL I just shared with you, and our personal SEL toolbox. If I was in person, we'd use a talking piece, but today we're just going to use the chat, share what you're thinking. And there's no right or wrong answer, just your thoughts. Bella's asking you, what are you thinking about the zones of SEL, this organized approach, and the SEL toolbox? And we'll go ahead and have you guys participate in the chat. Nisbah, could you just share what you were thinking kind of the first time we went through this, when we were going through this a couple of weeks ago? What kind of hit with you?
Yeah, I think for me, it was more along the lines of, I remember when I was much younger and I would kind of stay awake at night and I would be thinking about, I'd be feeling a particular way, like a certain emotion, like I'd be stressed out or I'd be upset or I'd be feeling guilty or I'd be feeling whatever it is, any particular emotion. And I would sit there and I would kind of not just feel it and react, like I would actually try and reflect instead of just reacting. And I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but I learned many years later that that's called metacognition. And it's like you're not just reacting to things, you're reflecting and unpicking why you feel a particular way, you know? And most of the time, if you do put that into practice, you will come to a conclusion and be able to then package your thoughts much better, as opposed to just feeling and feeling and feeling and that's it, you know? And so I'd always like encourage people to kind of do that. Is if they're feeling a particular way, sometimes it's just very basic. It's like, you know exactly what has ticked you off that morning or that day, or, you know, there's something very obvious. You kind of know the reason why, but then going a little bit deeper and saying, okay, well, this has happened to me. I feel this way. Now, why am I feeling this particular emotion? And I find that that helps massively with like conflict resolution as well. There's been some times at work where like I may have left a meeting, or in my personal life with my family where like I've left it and I've been like, you know, I feel bad about that. Like somebody said something that may have offended me or whatever. And then it just takes like 5 minutes of just thinking, well, why do you feel that way? Are you insecure about something? Did you perhaps say something earlier in the evening that might have made that? And I just think it's healthy. And obviously, there's a balance to it as well. You don't want to go too far. So I think for me, when I think about social emotional learning, and when I'm learning all the stuff that you're sharing, that's where I kind of apply it. It's like activating that metacognition, understanding why you're feeling things, and being able to package them in the right way in your brain in a healthy way.
So that's awesome. So I think you're talking about the toolbox. You're talking about that reflection piece, right? And that slowing down is part of self-management and self-awareness. And that's going to help you kind of climb the mountain. I think that's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, great. So we're going to keep going on now. We're going to get into the different competencies. The first one I want to talk about, the base layer of the mountain, is self-awareness. And Castle defines this as the abilities to understand one's own emotions, thoughts, and values, and how they influence behavior across contexts. And when we say across context, we're talking about our personal life and our professional life. So I'm about to tap my screen, and we're going to see a lot of individual strategies here to support self-awareness. Proactive ones, in the moment ones, and reflective ones. So you're going to see a lot. I don't want this to overwhelm anyone, but I'm just going to dig into a couple of these deeper after I share them. So some proactive tools that we can use to dig into our self-awareness are identifying our strengths, understanding our identity and culture, knowing our core values and living them, understanding how our brain works. I mean, I was never taught how my brain worked as a child, and that's critical, I think, for people to understand why they're having the emotions that they're having and what's happening physiologically inside your body. We can also notice our thoughts and feelings and understand what impacts our energy. In the moment tools, we can ask questions to learn more. We can reframe negative thoughts. We can identify physical signs of emotions, like, are you feeling hot or twitchy or tired or sweaty? All of those things mean something. Mindfulness and meditation are wonderful in the moment. And then reflection tools, we can think back and replay scenarios in a new way. And Misbah really hit on metacognition. That's thinking about your thinking. So you're thinking, well, why am I feeling this way? Why did that happen? And then how can I work through it? So I'm going to dig into a couple of these in a little more of a deep way. So I shared with you at the beginning of the session that my core values are joy, growth, and impact. And it was a very lengthy process to find out what my core values were. But I really wanted to identify them and live them so I could learn how to make decisions better at work and at home. So I have a tool that's going to be shared in the resource bank where you can go through like 100 different ideas and kind of rank what's your most important. And I did that. And I came up with probably 20 to 30 things that were important to me. And I was like, great, I've identified my core values. No way. I had to group them and kind of whittle them down. And I really wanted to get down to 3 because they could be like a mantra in my head. I'm all about joy, growth, and impact. And when someone asked me a question like, Wendy, will you do this task or take on this duty? I could say to myself, well, it doesn't really line up with my core values. It's not going to bring me joy to do that. Okay, things like that. So I'm going to click. Here are all the values that I identified as important. So positivity, kindness, enthusiasm, happiness, and enjoyment. I grouped them under joy. Joy was my one word I found for them. And under growth, I had identified as important lifelong learning, improvement, goals, challenges, and curiosities. So I put them all into the growth bucket. And then I had also keyed on helping others, making the world better, making a difference, excellence in family, and I put those under impact. So I now call this my core values and my waterfall values. The values underneath supporting the big 3 are my waterfall values. So in the resource bank we share later, you're going to find a tool that's going to help you identify this. It's from a book I read called Always Strive to Be a Better You. That's helped me a lot in my life. I want to talk about an in the moment strategy called reframing. So we have on any given day lots of negative thoughts. We're actually wired to notice negative thoughts more than positive thoughts. It just happens. And if you think about it, a lot of times you might have a day where 10 things happened, 9 of them were good, 1 of them was tough, and all you can think about is the one thing that went wrong. So reframing is looking at a situation and seeing it differently. It's not about being positive about everything. It's not about rainbows and unicorns. It's just about seeing things differently that maybe push it up into a more positive light. So I'm going to, these pictures here are going to help me explain a few moments where I reframed in my life, and hopefully you'll understand this. I've got a video in the resource bank to help you understand this. The ping pong paddles are there. As you saw in the beginning of the presentation, I have 2 teenage children, and they're very good ping pong players, and I'm a very bad ping pong player. So they will challenge me to a game, and they will beat me mercilessly, and they will also make fun of me while we're playing. I'm a competitive person. This actually really makes me mad. So I've got big emotions to deal with while my kids are taunting me, but I immediately reframe it as I'm spending time with my kids. My teenagers asked me to play a game with them. And even though they're winning, I'm really winning because I'm spending time with people I love. So that's how I reframed the ping pong game where I'm getting beaten mercilessly. The next picture shows a pile of shoes. There are shoes all over our home. There are dirty shoes, clean shoes, mismatched shoes. They're just everywhere. And I trip over them sometimes and I get annoyed by them and I want to kick them out of my way. But then I remember that these shoes mean a lot. We can afford shoes. I have 2 healthy children that are able-bodied and can move and run and play sports and do what they need to do. And so those shoes, I reframed them into like a symbol of something very good. When my kids are home, because they're both going to be college students this fall, they're here and I can value that time with them. And so the shoes, I've learned how to not get annoyed with them and just appreciate them when they're around. The next picture down on the left is kids on a school bus. So last year I worked at a neighborhood school. I was teaching 3rd grade, so that's 8 and 9-year-olds. And since it was a neighborhood school, many kids walked to school and a lot of kids never rode the bus. So we went on a field trip and we were going to a local recycling center and they saw a Cybertruck outside the window of the bus and they all went crazy. They all stood up and started screaming. They were excited to be on the bus. They were excited to see a car they didn't usually see. And immediately all the adults looked at each other like, oh my gosh, quiet, sit down. And I just had to say, hey guys, let's give them a minute. The kids are excited. Some of them never get to ride a bus. We're going on a field trip. Let's just let them be joyful and enjoy the moment. So I was able to just kind of look at all that energy and the noise and say, like, isn't this wonderful? We're taking the kids out and doing something fun. We reminded them to be safe, sit down and use a lower voice, but really their enthusiasm became something beautiful versus something annoying. And then the very last one down here, this is a funny one. That's a nail clippers. I came down one morning into my home at the kitchen table. There was the nail clippers and clipped nails on the kitchen table. So I really did not want to see this. I was like, ew, this is gross. I realized our son had clipped his nails the night before and not put anything away. So instead of getting mad and yelling at him or being frustrated, I immediately reframed it and said, okay, our son knows where the nail clipper is. He groomed himself without being asked. He just didn't clean up after himself. So when he woke up, I said, hey, Mike, thanks so much for clipping your nails. Next time, can you please clean up? He's like, I got it, Mom. No problem. So Ms. do you want to share your reframe based on your life event that we talked about when we were hashing through the session a couple weeks ago? I love yours.
Yeah, so for me, it's like I'm sure that everybody who has kids can kind of relate to this. It was, I think, in like maybe the 3rd or 4th week when like the crying and the no sleep was at like its peak. And it's like 4 a.m. and I'm finding myself like holding my little boy and he's so tiny and he's just not sleeping. And I'm like rocking him and like singing and trying to get him to sleep. And like, 20 minutes passes and I look down and his eyes are still wide open. I'm like, oh my God, and it's really easy in those moments to get quite stressed and frustrated because you're kind of, you're like, I really need to sleep. I'm not going to be able to function tomorrow. But then you remember, hold on a second, like, yeah, I'm not going to sleep and maybe I'll never sleep. I don't know, but I'm holding this tiny little life and like, he's mine and he's so cute. And, there are so many people around the world who like would love to be holding a little tiny baby boy right now, and I should be so grateful. And then I just kind of like switch it in my brain, and I've been trying to apply that to other parts of my life recently as well, where when I feel kind of let down or disappointed or something isn't particularly going well, I just immediately, rather than focus on that, immediately focus on the positive and the good things that are happening in my life. And I suppose the challenge is like, well, it's not even a challenge. It's like, how far can you truly take that?
Yeah.
How far can you compare that to the position, the situation that other people are in around the world?
Yeah.
And I find myself quite good at that. Although it doesn't always work. I think some people, they might just be having a challenging time. And if your advice to them is, hey, think about all the other people in the world who are going through so much worse, sometimes that's not what they need to hear. They just need to have comfort and encouragement. But for me, at least personally, I find that really works. Reframe it and looking at the positives. So I loved it when I discovered this little part of your session. Yeah.
Awesome. So thanks for sharing that, Ms. But you actually hit on something we're going to get to afterwards. So sometimes people just need an empathetic response, and they don't want to learn about a new skill, about seeing something in a more positive way. They just need to sit and have that empathy given to them. So we're going to touch on that as well. And so glad. I do this all the time automatically, guys. I'm going to be honest. My kids will be like, oh, mom's going to reframe this. Like, they know. So it's part of my practice. It's part of who I am. And it helps me so much at home and at work. So I would love if you checked out the resources on reframing in the resource board when we get there. All right, let's work to self-management. So that's the ability to manage one's emotions, thoughts, and behaviors effectively in different situations and to achieve goals and aspirations. So really, there's no calm down corner for adults. I want to make that point. So whether I'm at home and I'm dealing with a situation with my children or my extended family and I'm getting really frustrated, I can't just be like, hey, I'm out and go sit in a calm corner. And that certainly is not true at school. We do have calming spaces for our students now very often, but there's not one for us. So we have no choice but to learn strategies to help us get through difficult moments. And I just want to share a few that I hope are helpful to you. So same kind of slide I showed before for self-awareness. I'm going to share some strategies. Proactive tools we can embrace to help us with self-management are investing in calm, practicing kindness, naming 3 good things, embracing nature, prioritizing sleep, and avoiding judgment. And then some in-the-moment tools are using affective statements, box breathing. I'm going to go through box breathing. All of these you can read about in more detail in my book. I go into each one in a detailed way, but I'll just touch on a couple of these in our session now. And then in reflection tools, we want to identify our triggers and do that rear view mirror analysis when we have time. So it is actually a proactive strategy to invest in kindness. It actually releases chemicals in our brain that makes us feel better. And to me, that is such an inexpensive way to make yourself feel better while you're helping others. And I love this. We can be kind to ourselves, to others, and to the world. So we can pick different things that we do that help us feel better while we're helping others and the world around us. So I shared an article on the resource board. You'll have access to it. It's called The Other Side of Languishing is Flourishing. And here's how to get there. This was an article that was written after COVID. And they talked about how to really get people into a better way, feeling better. And they talked about performing acts of kindness. But here's some amazing research. They said and found that if you cluster your acts of kindness doing 5 good deeds in one day versus 1 on 5 days in a row, you're going to have a more powerful positive impact. And that just blew me away. And I'm like, okay, so I can do 5 small things in a day and it's going to make me feel better than if I do 1 per day. And I started to think about that, like, how can I do that? 5 is a lot. It's not that much, guys. It really isn't. So we can help our family members with little things. In the school day, we can be kind. It might be tying a child's shoe in the schoolhouse. It might be filling up a water bottle for a family member if you can. It might be taking care of the laundry. When I go out to walk the dog, I'll bring a trash bag. So if I see any trash in the neighborhood, I'll just pick up the trash and put it in the bag. I also donate blood once a quarter. And I feel like that's just a way I can help the world that will help anyone. So there's lots of things we can do. I encourage you to dig into the article and read about how doing 5 things in one day is more of a positive impact than doing 1 over 5 days. And it's not as hard as we think. In the moment when we're having big emotions, we can do something called box breathing. And this is a technique that the military uses to help soldiers de-escalate in difficult situations. So basically the gist of it is that you visualize a box and you breathe around that box in steps of 4 seconds. When I teach my students how to do this, I actually teach them to draw a box in the air with their finger. That physical movement helps them anchor to the act of doing the box breathing, or they can actually trace their finger on a desk or on a carpet, a floor, something like that. So basically, you visualize a box. Step one is or step two is you breathe in slowly, count to 4. It's like this, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath. 3, 4. Exhale. 4 and hold. So I will literally start doing this if I'm in an argument with an adult, like a family member. I'll do it and they don't know I'm doing it. I'll do it in the classroom. Sometimes in the classroom when things are very chaotic, I'll stop everything and I'll just have the kids do it with me. And it works immediately because you have to pay so much attention to the strategy that you automatically slow down. So in the resource bank, there's an article and a video for you on box breathing. I just love it. Again, it's an inexpensive, easy way to manage yourself that can become part of your personal practice. And before you know it, you'll be doing it automatically. All right, let's go on to social awareness. This is the ability to understand the perspective of and empathize with others, including those from diverse backgrounds, cultures, and contexts. I think that empathy is the secret sauce to life. I'm going to be honest. With the world the way it is, with children coming to us with very intense needs, and just kind of like how challenging daily life can be, I think that when we can slow down and have empathy for others, it changes everything. It can help us really connect. So Ms. earlier was saying, like, some people might be doing the reframe. Some people might want to learn about the reframe. Some people might not be there yet. They don't want to learn about the reframe. Maybe they just are so overwhelmed by their negative thoughts. They're just sitting in there. And what they need is that empathy, someone to sit there with them and to feel with them. So let's go through some social awareness strategies. So proactive tools, we can understand empathy deeply. I'm going to talk about a couple things in a moment. We can seek to understand others. We can avoid othering, like thinking about people in different buckets and being like us and them. We can learn about new cultures, and we can practice asking questions. In the moment tools, we can respond with empathy. There's specific things you can say and do. And when I read an article about this, it just changed my life, literally. Most importantly, changed it at home. And then I've brought that with me to other situations. And then our reflection tools, of course, we can think back to when we didn't use empathy or when we did and what was different about that. So this is literally a screen snip from my book. Chapter 5 is about social awareness. And I say it's about moving from self to others. Remember, we did the work on self-awareness and self-management, and then we moved to others with empathy. And we have the metaphor of walking in someone else's shoes as being how to understand empathy. Like a child needs to know how to walk in someone else's shoes. Yes, I get that. But if we understand how to walk in someone's shoes and we don't do anything about it, I don't know what the point is. So I think that empathy is curious, connected, and active. We have to act with it to really be empathetic, not just understand it in an abstract way. So I love this visual, which is an easy way to explain the difference between sympathy and empathy. On the left side, we've got the little blue toy is crying, the little blue guy, because his toy is broken. You can see the little stuff, he has an arm broken off. And the other character says, that's too bad. And that's a nice thing to say. Your toy broke and you say, that's too bad. You're being sympathetic. You're like, oh, that stinks. Over on the right, we see a more active response. We see the little blue guy is upset because the toy is broken, and the pink guy is actually picking up a needle and thread to help repair that toy. So that's that active part. I know what you're feeling like. I know how much it stinks to have your toy broken, and I'm going to help you fix your toy. So that, I think, is just a very concrete, effective way to explain the difference between empathy and sympathy and understand empathy a little bit more deeply. In the moment, we can respond with empathy, and I'm going to talk through an article written by Amanda Morin. She's a very wonderful human who writes often about neurodiversity and empathy. She wrote an article called 7 Ways to Respond to Students with Empathy. And I think it should just be called 7 Ways to Respond to Humans with Empathy. And I read this article during COVID when I was locked down with my family, and I was really having trouble supporting our own children who were teenagers. I read her article, and I immediately started to try and do some of the things with my family members, and I noticed a big difference. So I'll share. One of her guidelines is to follow the platinum rule. People think about the golden rule: treat others as you want to be treated. However, how you want to be treated may not work for someone else. So the platinum rule is to think about what they want and how they want to be treated. And it's a subtle shift, but it's a really powerful one. We can ask open-ended questions. We can ask, are you frustrated, lonely, angry about something? Are you okay? The biggest question is, are you okay? Okay. And that's not that's going to help uncover what's happening and help that person open up and share if they're able to. We can set aside our own reaction. Sometimes you might think that someone is being ridiculous about a situation, like there's nothing to be upset about, there's nothing to be afraid of, there's nothing to cry over. But for that person in that moment, there is. We just got to set that aside and be like, I'm here with someone who needs help and is having a big emotion and is struggling. So putting our reaction aside, we can kind of tend to it later, I feel like, after the situation's over. We can use I statements to avoid blame. We don't want to make someone feel defensive by saying you. We want to say things like, I know you're hurting. What can I do for you? Okay, so those I statements, I want to help you. I'm thinking this, and then have people kind of go back and forth with you to confirm what you're understanding. We can actively listen, put our phones down, consider our body posture, our tone of voice, our facial expression, our eye contact. All of this will tell the person that I'm really with you right now. And that's harder than it seems, but it's very, very important, especially in this day and age where we're so distracted. Also, we can avoid jumping into fix-it mode. This is me. I'm a mom, right? I'm always trying to solve problems and move to the next item on my task list. But instead of trying to fix things, I can just kind of listen and be there with that person, sit with them, and just get them through it. And then say, would you like advice? Would you like me to help you fix it? And if they say no, that's okay, because then I'm giving them what they need, which maybe is just that partnership of someone being there. And then we can validate feelings. We can say, your feelings are not right or wrong. They're all valid. Whatever feeling you have here in this moment is the right one, and remind people that feelings leave. But we just want to validate that. And we don't want to say, there's nothing to be scared of. This is ridiculous. You shouldn't be crying. That's not an empathetic response. So try and do this at home with my kids, my husband, my extended family members, and then definitely bring it to school, because kids are coming to us with a lot of trauma, a lot of needs. And so always just saying, what do you need? How can I help you is a great way to go. All right. On to relationship skills. This is our ability to establish and maintain healthy and supportive relationships and effectively navigate settings with diverse individuals and groups. Here's what I think. I think that if we dig into self-awareness, self-management, and social awareness, we're going to have positive relationships, because people want to be around people who are self-aware, can manage themselves, and use empathy in situations. So I just think it's by digging into and pouring into those first three competencies, you're just going to enjoy more positive relationships. And I know that I have. So that's why the base layer of the mountain, the bottom of the mountain, those thicker layers at the bottom are so critical for building up our SEL skills. A couple things here. Proactive tools. We can understand the pillars of adult friendships. We can grow in relationships. We can learn how to listen. We can learn about holidays that we don't celebrate, but that others may be celebrating. We can notice current events, and we can commit to practicing deep empathy. In the moment, we can listen, compliment, compromise, and be kind. And reflection tools, a great one is to compare relationships to see what are working, what aren't working, and what's the difference. So this is just some great research that I came across recently, understanding the pillars of adult friendship. They are proximity, timing, and energy. And if any one of these is off, your connection with an adult may not work. And this has helped me understand so well why some friendships and relationships are about a time and place, and then they leave, and that's okay. It also can understand why important relationships like family members kind of sometimes can fluctuate, be volatile. I felt a sigh of relief when I started to understand this. So I've linked in a great article and podcast for you to dig into this. This may help you understand why a particular relationship is or is not working. It's wonderful information. In my book, I talk about how we grow in relationships. That's an acronym because we are always, gathering relationships, picking up new ones, especially in education, because we meet a whole new group of students and families every year. We're always retaining relationships. That means we're keeping them, pouring into them. We are also offboarding them when they don't work anymore, or when they may be harmful to us. And when those adult pillars are off, that may be a sign that we need to offboard a relationship. And we can always be wondering about relationships. Where is this going to go? Where is this going to take us? All of that is natural and okay. And we need to forgive ourselves if we're seeing a lot of this and we're thinking, is something wrong with me? It's just the way that relationships work. All right. In the moment strategies, listening, complimenting, and compromise. It sounds so simple, but giving a compliment while you're in a conflict, offering that compromise, and listening deeply are really going to be helpful. And that's both personally and professionally. All right. And now on to the last competency. This is that responsible decision making. These are abilities to make caring, constructive choices about personal behavior and social interactions across diverse situations. This is the synthesis of all the work that we've done. So we can use that lens of our core values to help us make decisions. We can decide early in the day. Research has shown that people make more accurate decisions early in the day, even if they're a night owl. Chess data was analyzed to come up with that finding. We can avoid sunk cost bias. That's saying that we've done something, so we're going to keep doing it, such as you pick up a book, you think, I'm going to love this book. Halfway through, you're like, I hate this book, but you keep reading it because you already went to the investment of starting to read it. Just put the book down. That's avoiding sunk cost, and that means you can move on to something else. We can name pros and cons of situations. We can seek trusted counsel. Again, with all those good relationships we're having now because we've dug into our SEL, we're going to have lots of people we can go to, hopefully, for different decisions. We can decide when we're regulated. When we are upset, we will probably always make less good or less accurate decisions. In the moment, we can stop and wait. We can try something different. And reflection tools, we can think back to good decisions, think back to poor decisions, and compare and contrast what was happening with each one. And here is where I think everything comes together with SEL. So we will succeed at decision making when we are calm, when we think about different options and perspectives, when we persevere, when we're safe and moral and talk to others. All of that is the embodiment of those SEL skills we've been talking about. So I stay calm, that's your self-management. I think about different options and perspectives, that's social awareness. I persevere, I don't give up, that's self-awareness. I'm safe and moral. That's social awareness. Again, what's happening, what's going to be the impact of my decision on the world, and talking to others, that's our relationship skills. We will probably fail at decision making or make less good decisions when we're emotional and impulsive. I know I do. When we don't consider options and perspectives, when we give up, take the easy way out, and don't talk to others. So it's just a really simple way of saying, if you do all of this work on your own SEL skills, you're going to make better decisions. All right. And here's some good decisions that I've made. I use the word struggling to describe what's happening when someone has a hard time, whether it's a family member or a student. That word struggle just kind of ignites this empathy light in me to try and help someone versus labeling them as someone who's misbehaving or can't do things. I've named my annoying triggers at home and work. I analyze my day to use it effectively. I do higher cognitive tasks in the early part of the day when I'm better, and I do lower cognitive tasks late in the day because I am just a morning person and I'm very depleted after teaching all day, so I save simpler tasks for the evening. I name and live my core values. That's my joy, growth, and impact. When I was approached by Wakelet to do this keynote, immediately I knew that this opportunity lined up with my core values. I would definitely experience joy by giving a presentation and connecting with others around the world. I'm growing myself by pushing to create a great presentation and share what I've learned, and my impact hopefully will be positive on all of you and anyone else who watches this presentation in the future. I learn constantly. I'm open to new ideas. I apologize. Often my best weapon in moving forward in life is an apology when I need it. And so I apologize with reckless abandon, and I'm comfortable with that. And I left the classroom. I was very burned out. In 2022, one of my best decisions was going back. I really miss children and all the good things that happen when we're working with young people. So with that, if you could just share a recent great choice you've made in the chat, go ahead. And it could even be coming on to this presentation this morning. And Ms. do you want to chime in on anything? I feel like you're reframing about your time with your baby son when he's not sleeping is a great decision, to be honest. And that's going to bolster your mental health and probably just improve relationships in your personal life.
Yeah, I think it's the element of choice is really important. I think when we kind of acknowledge and understand that we have so much more choice over our lives and how we actually feel, I think that it makes for a much, not easier, but a much better experience. And I think that like one of the things that, and I don't know, maybe I'm just alone in this, I don't know, but I think when you realize that like you do have a choice in the way that you feel, you do have a choice over your emotions, it doesn't come immediately. It's not like somebody who's feeling really upset or down or depressed or sad or anxious can just snap out of it. That's completely false. Mm-hmm. But I think that putting the work in to understand that the more that you recognize and the more that you do that metacognition, the more that you do these things, these practices that you're talking about, the more you're at home in that space that is your brain and you're friends with it and you understand yourself, then the easier that does become to understand that you do have a choice in the way that you feel. Quite often you can sort of go down one way, or you can take a beat, acknowledge it, say this hurts, or this is stressful, or this is likely to upset me for quite some time, but I'm going to be this way, you know? And it's not about like I'm a man, and we often get like kind of lumped into the category of like repressing our feelings and our emotions. I think it's changed a little bit now, but like it's not about suppressing it. It's just about acknowledging it, understanding where it fits, perhaps coming to it a little bit later. But definitely, I think I agree 100%. Having a choice is and understanding that you have choices are really, really important.
Yeah, I think it helps. What you're describing is like, for me, life just came into focus. It became like a little more clear through some of this work. So it just enabled me almost to like clean off the lens of my life and then realize that I had some power. Again, we're all complex humans living in a complex world. We're going to have these big emotions, but like how to get through them. And as I've watched my own skills get stronger, it is helping me to live a better life and attend to things in a more like successful way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Respond more than you react, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So just a quick review. So when we're doing these things, really, I think you can all end up in that competence zone. And that's where I'd love to see you. So at that point too, you're really at the top of the mountain. And I'm just going to say again, if you dig into those bottom three, those big three, the beautiful relationships are going to come along, and then your ability to make good decisions is going to just evolve and happen more naturally. So really, really invest in the bottom layers of the mountain. We are close on time, but I want to share with you a way that you can bring SEL into your classroom space or your school space. There's some practices where we can integrate SEL, and I think that's important too. So this is the work of building our own practice, becoming better at this in our personal and professional life. I would urge you to focus on your personal life first, because that'll change who you are and how you do things. And you'll bring that into school. You're not going to separate how you are in both contexts. So focus on self first at home. And there you are when you're at the top of the SEL mountain, you've climbed it all. So let's just talk quickly about the steps to take, review, and then we'll get to the integration. So identify your zone, know where you are. Please don't judge it. Build your toolbox with proactive in the moment and reflective tools, and then climb that SEL mountain. All right. And do this, please, in your personal and professional life. And I would start with the personal life. All right. So 3 signature SEL practices that we can bring to our education spaces are welcoming, inclusive openings, engaging strategies and brain breaks, and meaningful, optimistic closures. And I have embraced these these practices, and I've brought them into my 2nd and 3rd grade classroom. And I've taught it the college level, into professional development sessions, and even like in my home in some ways, like having connection activities and ways to talk to each other that promote this. So let me explain briefly about each of these 3 practices. There is a video in your resource bank for you. All right, welcoming, inclusive openings. We can do things like set norms in our space. We can do emotion check-ins, and we can ask connection questions. So norm setting is like coming up with guiding principles. It's not rules. Rules are top down and heavy and says you must do this. Norms are more about what do we want our space to look like, sound like, and feel like together. In your resource bank, there's a great video about how to start setting up norms with kids. Basically, you have a collaborative process, and that's going to help your students buy in, or your staff buy in, much more easily than if you just dictate what the rules are. We can do emotion check-ins. These are fun. I love doing check-in charts on a scale of sheep. How do you feel today? This is one of my favorites. And I've linked in a collection of these charts. They're just joyful, and they make people smile and laugh when you do them. So I think you cannot lose with them. And they're for kids of all ages and adults. I also do a system in my classroom where kids put on bracelets to tell us how they're feeling. Like green is feeling great, yellow is so, red is not good. I've linked in an article about that. And you can see on this day, this is an actual picture in the classroom. There were a lot of kids that weren't feeling great. And as I start to teach, I need to notice that and think that a lot of kids in my class on certain days might need more. It's also valuable for adults to identify their emotions. And I wear a bracelet myself every day. I always say I wish every adult in my school building was wearing one, because then I could know who just might need an extra check-in or more support during the day. Practice 2 is about engaging strategies and brain breaks. And with this, I just want to think about how we plan, how we deliver content, how we structure our learning, and how we let students process, retrieve, and share information. So I've come up with 4 questions that we can ask while we're planning that we can just lay over our content planning. And these are for every age and every content area. The questions are, do students get to move? Do they get to express a thought or an opinion? Do students get to interact with other students? And do students get to make a choice? And I say that micro moves matter and micro choices matter. When I can answer yes to all 4 of these questions as I'm planning a math lesson or a science lesson or a field trip, it's going to, if it's yes, I know that lesson's going to be powerful, it's going to have high engagement, and it's probably going to be a lot of fun. So ask yourself these questions as you prepare learning experiences for young children all the way up through adults, and I promise you'll see a positive impact. We can also map these questions to SEL. Here's that castle model again. Whoops. And all of these questions line up to a competency, right? So moving supports self-management. expressing thoughts and opinions supports self-awareness. Interacting with others, especially others with disabilities and diverse individuals, fosters empathy and social awareness. Relationship skills, when kids get to work together and they love it, they create better relationships with each other. And when kids have a choice, even a teeny tiny one, it helps them practice making responsible decision makings. So SEL can be standalone lessons to teach concepts, but then we want it to be integrated into the fabric of our classroom as we learn every day. And that's the goal. So this is how to integrate some of that. Okay, and making choices also supports self-awareness. Here's a visual that goes to a very famous study. The brain on the right has much more activity after 20 minutes of walking and movement. So thinking about your lectures, thinking about students in your classroom or your space, get them moving. There's going to be a lot higher level of brain activity, particularly that's the prefrontal cortex there, the big part of our brain where we make decisions and learn, particularly in that area. All right. And then meaningful optimistic closures. We can share questions at the end of a lesson or a day. What went well? What did you learn? What are you thinking about? What are you looking forward to? My favorite question to ask kids is what went well today? And I will do that with my family at home when we connect. Hey guys, can everyone name just one good thing about today, even if it was a terrible, horrible day? And sometimes you're just saying something like the sun was out today. And you're like, okay, that's something that was great about today. So no judgment of it, but just actually engaging in that meaningful focus with optimism or positivity. And you can live these 3 signature SEL practices in your space. So there they are. There's resources linked in the resource bank to help you practice these. All right. And we are getting close to time. I would ask everyone to share in the chat what went well about this presentation today. Is there something that you can share that you enjoyed? Yeah, Shane, if everyone wore those bracelets indicating their moods, we wouldn't take things personally. I always think, adults have a lot going on, just like kids. We need to support each other. Awesome. So if you liked something about today, go ahead and share it in the chat. Ms. But feel free to chime in too about anything that went well with this presentation. And I'm going to put up our last slide, which has the links to the resource bank and also my book and social handles.
No, I loved it. I loved it the first time that you showed it, Wendy, because I think it touches on a very, very important part of just being human. And I think that, as I said at the beginning, at the front end of this, like anything that helps us manage our emotions better, manage our moods better, become more socially aware, improve our interpersonal relationships, anything like that. I think there's such a big place for it, especially for educators, because, being an educator is difficult. It's hard. It's very challenging. You have to spin so many different plates. You have to wear so many different hats. And I think that I really love this push that's happened in the last few years around mental health for educators. I think it's something that myself and the Wakelet team are really passionate about. It's one of the reasons why we love having speakers like you share your knowledge and your experience and your wisdom on this. But I think the advice that I'd have for people is this stuff really works. This isn't just like some ideas. There's science behind this. I think like what Wendy was showing, there's psychology behind it. It's not just like thoughts and tips and tricks. It's much deeper than that. And I think that developing better ways to understand your emotions and your behaviors, better ways to build empathy and understanding the difference between sympathy and empathy, if we all take little snatches of that, little bits of that and implement them into our lives, I think that just doing them creates better learning communities, and people will see by your example. If you're reacting to a very stressful time and everybody around you is kind of going crazy and losing it, but you're the calm one, people notice and they pick up on that, and they'll inquire and they'll ask and they'll say, how is it that you could remain calm? How is it that you're, everyone else seems really stressed out, you seem quite calm today? And then you get the opportunity to share these learnings with everybody else as well. So I think for me, sessions like this, I love them, and I can see by everybody in the chat as well that there is a lot of consensus that this is much needed. I think people all agree.
Thank you, Ms. But hey, Yvonne. Yvonne's a friend of mine here in Wilmington. They can change their bracelets during the day. So that's one of the great features, because our emotions change throughout the day. And I've actually changed my bracelet in the middle of the day and showed the kids that I have those big emotions too. And Ms. Beth, thanks for your kind of nice summary. This is a way to live a life that maybe could be more fulfilling, better, more clarity, more calm. And it's not tips and tricks. I actually hate tips and tricks. I think we have to dig into like the real science behind it, the research. And that's why I love this. And we're literally building skills that are helpful for us. And then they're going to authentically trickle down to our students.
Exactly. Wendy, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. All of the resources, you can scan the code that Wendy's got on screen now. I know that you've got this amazing book. I started reading the first few pages of it. I'm going to read it all. I think it's awesome. So scan that code as well and check that out. And of course, follow Wendy on socials as well, because I know that you'll be sharing some really cool things going forward. I'm going to share the link in the chat for your certificates. And as always, throughout Community Week, filling out this form also will get you access to the resources that are being shared today. And head over to social. We've got about half an hour. I'll be hosting the next session as well, which is, let me just double check here, is going to be... The suspense. Yeah. It'll be Wakelet PD around collaborating and creating. So this is about empowering educators and students with Wakelet, and we'll be joined by the amazing Jackie Kavanaugh. I can't wait for that. That'll be taking place in just half an hour. So make sure to have a break, stay hydrated, and join us on that session as well. Thank you so much, Wendy. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Take care.